Recording now.
Great. If you can introduce yourself, that would be great.
All right.
And I've started sharing the screen.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Akhil. Been a part of Bahmni for quite a few years now, almost 7, 8 years, and I work as the domain SME and come the project, product uh, feature analyst or whatever you may call. I wear too many hats. Thanks everyone for joining in. And Gurpreet, you want to go ahead?
Hello, everyone. Welcome for joining this demo session. It's been a pretty, hard worked release of Bahmni after a year. My name is Gurpreet. I've been with the Bahmni team for about 4 years in different capacities. I was involved in the second implementation of Bahmni in Gadchiroli in rural Maharashtra many years back as tech lead. And then I played the community manager role, and currently I'm playing a mix of community manager and product manager role, and any other hats, as a lean team that we've got to wear. Along with me, Anshuman has been playing the architect role for Bahmni since 2012 when it started. And of course, Dr. Akhil has been around for really long. He's also done and participated in multiple implementations of Bahmni and acts as the SME. And we are part of the social change group at Thoughtworks. Thoughtworks is the creator of Bahmni. And now Bahmni is owned by a group of companies, including Thoughtworks as the main backer for the Bahmni Coalition, which has other organizations including OpenMRS, MSF, MECOM, JMB, IP-Lit, and others. You can sort of Google that up and it will show up. Today we are recording the session, just FYI, so that this demo can be also put up publicly on our website. And what I'll do, I'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes giving a rapid overview of Bahmni Lite. All of this is available on our wiki pages also, and I will share the link of this deck itself with all the members here so that they can download it or they can refer to it whenever you want, so you don't have to really make any notes. All right, so let's get started. I'll try and keep this short, 10 to max 15 minutes, and then we'll jump into the live demo by Dr. Akhil. So Bahmni Lite, this is the v1.0 release of Bahmni Lite, which is a cloud-ready lightweight version of Bahmni designed for clinics and small hospitals. Quick, summary of Bahmni before Bahmni Lite for those who are unfamiliar or even those who are familiar, so that they can compare and contrast Bahmni overall with what this new version is. So the original offering for Bahmni, which we are now calling Bahmni Standard, was designed for mid-large hospitals, and in fact, the first client for or adopter for Bahmni was Jan Swasthya Sahyog in Bilaspur, which is a secondary NGO hospital and has about 100-bed hospital. And Bahmni in general has been now used across the world for various hospitals, ranging from all of these use cases, registration to OPD, radiology lab, IPD, nursing station, pharmacy, warehouse, and billing. And Bahmni kind of comprises a pack of 4 open source products, which is OpenMRS, which is a core EMR, the clinical system on top of which Bahmni is built, and then it data transfer happens between DCM 4G, the radiology system, LS, the lab system, and Odoo, which is the ERP system. So as an example, when you register a patient in Bahmni, that patient becomes a patient even in OpenLS. It's automatically created over Atom Feed, the data transfers. It would create a patient in DCM 4G if a radiology order is created by the clinician for the patient. And a customer will get created automatically in Odoo, so that all orders like medical orders or procedures, as they're given in EMR, those orders will flow into Odoo, so that during the billing system, you are able to create a bill and you can see all the actions that happen. So the data flows across these products as is needed. A lab investigation will go to OpenLS. So this is in a way our original offering for Bahmni, which now we're calling Bahmni Standard. Uh, and from a feature set perspective, Bahmni has been around since 2012, so it's almost 10 plus years. And because it's built on top of all of these products, it's really feature rich and quite a lot of features across registration, clinical, IPD, lab, DICOM, and Odoo, which is billing and the inventory management software. And then besides that, it's internationalization enabled. There is reporting, there is metadata management, data export, import, audit log. Originally, it was Linux based on CentOS and significantly huge wiki documentation, over 1,000 pages of documentation, including a user guide, implementers guide, and installation guide, and other relevant developer documentation. It's all 100% open source and Creative Commons. Also, Bahmni was recognized as a digital public good by UNDPGA in 2021. It's also featured in Digital Square and Global Goods product list. It's featured in UNDP Digital X catalog, and these are all recognized registries for open source products, which are proven to be mature and can be adopted by countries across the world. The target audience really is LMICs, low middle income countries, and Bahmni to a significant degree has proven itself across these various sites. We know of almost 600 plus implementation and 50 plus countries which are using Bahmni across the world, but there could be much more because you can freely download and use it. Many times we come to know about the implementation only when someone from that facility reaches out to us for like a bug fix or for a question around feature enhancement. That's how we come to know about an implementation. So let's now talk about Bahmni Lite, which is our newest release. What were some of the goals, including the feedback that we received for Bahmni Standard? So for quite some time, in fact, almost 4 or 5 years, we've been getting this feedback that, Bahmni is big, it has a lot of components, but I usually require only 1 or 2 components, and I would like a lightweight version for my facility. And also in many cases, even if the facility is big, they do not want to start out and digitize the whole facility in one go. Usually most facilities will adopt an incremental approach to digitalization. So they might start with registration and then slowly move forward into clinical, or they might just use lab, or they might use reports with clinical. So there are all these combinations, and people felt like the current software as it exists is heavy. And it has a lot of these softwares that are plugged together. Can there be a lighter weight version which is easier to install, requires less, let's say, hardware and less setup? Also, we had been supporting CentOS from the very start, and one of the reasons was CentOS is like a production grade Linux server, and the idea being we wanted to make it all open source. But over time, the two things happened. One is we realized that a significant part of the OpenMRS community, which overlaps with Bahmni, is on Ubuntu and has Ubuntu Tech and doesn't prefer CentOS. And CentOS also started losing traction across the open source community, and now, of course, it's like it's deprecated. And people wanted Bahmni to be supported across other operating systems like Ubuntu, Windows, or other Linux flavors. Provide a version for small facilities and clinics that actually want to run Bahmni possibly on a laptop or on a desktop computer. So that was another requirement to make it easy. Reduce the configuration time, make it more out-of-box ready so that you have to do less installation, less configuration. And the idea was, can you like ship a dictionary of clinical terms that is usable, ready to use in the real world? Can you have SNOMED LOINC mappings that could help in reporting? Can it have like a pre-configured drug list? Can we have some forms which would be useful for small facilities, like a simpler? And Akhil will show all of this now when we go into the demo. And the other requirement that we've been also hearing a lot is, can we have mobile support? especially for doctors who are on the move inside a facility and they want to quickly see a patient's, lab result, or they want to quickly see a patient's history, or they want to like order a test on the move and so on. So can we start getting some mobile support, which is not necessarily going to be the primary interface that people may use, but they would like to be able to use Bahmni on the go. And then the last pretty important one, which had been pending for quite some time, was that Bahmni was running on OpenMRS 2.1, which is almost a 3-year-old version of OpenMRS, and it needed to be upgraded because the OpenMRS community and the development group has been actively adding a lot of features over the last 1.5 years. And we wanted those features to come into Bahmni, including for maintenance and security. A lot of upgrades needed to be done. And therefore, these goals were what we were focusing on for Bahmni Lite. So what does Bahmni Lite now mean, right? So Bahmni Lite basically is three components. One is the EMR, which is the one that runs on top of OpenMRS, which is a Bahmni Green UI that is now available, upgraded to the latest version of OpenMRS, huge number of security fixes. It comes out of the box with Seal dictionary with 50,000 plus terms. Seal is an open source dictionary maintained by Dr. Andrew Cantor from OpenMRS community, and it's already been used in multiple facilities. It comes out of the box with forms, with India Drug Essential Drug List. It comes with an initializer module developed by MECOM that you can easily change CSVs and directly set up your master data. You don't it's becomes a lot easier to manage all your metadata with the initializer modules. It comes out of the box with certain reports, and it also comprises of a lightweight LabLite module that allows you to upload patient reports, PDFs or images. And it now no longer has the LabLite, the Bahmni Lite version no longer has OpenLS or the ERP or Odoo. Instead, it has LabLite module. It has Crater, which is another open source billing and invoicing system. Lightweight, mobile responsive, easy to understand, doesn't require any training. And then the last software which comes along with this is the open source metabase along with MART, where the data flows from the EMR part so that you can do, analytics, reports, dashboards, custom dashboards, yourself. So these three pieces together, along with the fact that it's Dockerized and it's cloud ready, kind of make it a lot easier for you to get started with Bahmni, to be able to do all the normal polyclinic or small hospital kind of requirements, which would be registered patient, enter clinical data, order tests, investigations, drugs, print the various forms, print the prescriptions, and do billing for services, create invoices, and also be able to do analytics and report. And the good thing about this is that you can actually eventually extend this to integrate with Odoo or extend this to integrate with LS if that is a path that you wanted to go ahead and take. So all of these, and this, like I said, this deck would be available. So I've mostly spoken about all of these things around the fact that it's Dockerized, it can run on any OS, it's cloud ready. It's all our systems are deployed using the cloud version, which is the AWS and Kubernetes mode. In fact, this next diagram, which I won't go into the detail, but it sort of shows you the fact that this is the architecture, simple architecture on Kubernetes, where all the parts of Bahmni basically can run as pods inside a Kubernetes cluster. And you can also sort of use namespaces to run multiple instances. Like we have a QA environments as different namespaces running on Kubernetes. So all of this stuff has been already automated. Other organizations have tried it out, deployed it using the Terraform scripts and the Helm charts. So this whole thing is like out of the box, secure and configured for those organizations that want to deploy Bahmni on AWS or Kubernetes using Terraform. The other option would, of course, be the Docker variant, where if you just like took an EC2 instance or a server machine and deployed using the Docker Compose option of Bahmni and just brought things up, that also works fine. There are some advantages of Docker and there are some advantages of Terraform, depending on what you prefer. There's also now Fire support. which means that our Fire API is exposed mostly thanks to OpenMRS, and then we've written some extensions so that you can kind of call the Fire endpoints and get Fire objects, Fire resources out of Bahmni. We've also added SMS, WhatsApp, and email support. So, for instance, on create of an appointment or on registration of a patient, if you wanted to send an email to the patient that, hey, your appointment is scheduled for this day, or you wanted to inform them of the registration, those endpoints and configurations are now available. WhatsApp support is still minimal. It's just a notification to patient. We are actively also working on an initiative next month where people will be able to book WhatsApp appointments from WhatsApp itself, where you can say, I want an appointment and, chat like a chatbot, but that part is going to be under development from next month onwards. Significant security upgrades and fixes. We use Trivy Scanner to actually scan our environments, get reports, fix the vulnerabilities. And this process went on for almost 3 months, depending on the vulnerabilities that were discovered. New fixes, new patches, upgrades were done. Even OpenMRS had some critical bugs to be fixed. The OpenMRS team, with our help, worked on it, and they have also published a stable version of OpenMRS, which was then packaged with Bahmni Lite. All of these links are available in our release notes for each of these areas. They are all documented, so you can of course dive into the details. I won't spend more time inside this now. Just to move forward, all the links of the difference between Bahmni Lite and standard, release notes, announcements, links to demo servers that you can play with, Docker-based installation, and security guide, which is a guide that we've compiled this in this release for implementers to keep in mind when they deploy an open source solution like Bahmni, which is hosting medical data for citizens. There are quite a lot of guidelines here for things you can keep in mind. And also, like I said, the Terraform work that we've done with AWS, it by default puts in a lot of security measures, but you might need to do more depending on your context and the way you choose to deploy things. This is the last slide. I also wanted to thank all the supporters and contributors. Thoughtworks, of course, has been like one of the biggest contributor to Bahmni over all the years. But besides that, the software built by OpenMRS, support from Atlassian, Bahmni Coalition members who've been contributing, like Beehive, IntelliSoft, and IPLit, and then AWS for giving us all the environments on which the test servers run. So different organizations have been supporting and contributing, and many contributors also over the last 1 year have contributed to Bahmni Lite. So thank you very much for all your support. We'll jump to the demo. Akhil, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thanks very much, Gurpreet. Let me start sharing my screen. Please let me know if it is visible.
Yes, I see it.
Awesome. Okay. So as Gurpreet said that we have scaled down Bahmni Lite for tailoring it for smaller clinics and hospitals. So typically, not a lot of small clinics have their in-house pharmacy. Almost, everyone depends on third-party pharmacies and third-party labs. So we have removed the OpenLS module and the Odoo module from Bahmni and instead added a smaller, lightweight payments and billing solution called Creator. We will come to this later, but for now, let's look at the clinical part of Bahmni. And let me log in. I'm logging in as a super admin, so we have access to all the modules. But similar to Bahmni, this version is also access controlled. Typically, in smaller clinics or a single doctor clinics, that will not be required. But sometimes, there is a front desk. So, doctors or clinic owners prefer to, limit their access to patient information. So if you have a front desk role, you will, have only the registration tab. Otherwise, for a doctor, since most of them are owners of the clinic, you will have rest of the modules as well as a super admin. We'll do a typical OPD flow for a patient. We will start with registration and then move on to clinical, and then we will come to the other, admin related areas and billing as well. Let's go to registration. Again, similar functionality to Bahmni, where you have, an option to search for an older patient or create a new patient. Now, what we have configured over here is the phone number and the name, but you can have multiple, search criteria configured, which you can, search the patient with. But as standard, we have configured only the name and the phone number, and of course the patient ID. So let's create a new patient. Let me create a patient in my name. Enter. And these are the basic fields that we have configured over here. And not everything is mandatory. You could even request us to make the phone number non-mandatory. So, and all you need to do is start an OPD visit, which brings us to the second page. The identifier has been generated. And in the second page, you could capture the basic triage information and the vitals. Okay. So let's capture a couple of a bunch of information. Let's say 130 and 90. Let's mark them as normal. Height and weight 165. Let's say 60. And with Bahmni Lite, since you have single doctor clinics, they might not want to click on save first and then go back to the home page, then click on clinical and go to the patient's dashboard. Rather, we have provided a button over here which says save and go to dashboard, which skips through all the navigation and directly brings you over here onto the patient's dashboard, right, where you can immediately start consultation. Now, this is a patient that we have just created, so everything is empty. I also have a patient which has a bunch of historical data. So this is how a dashboard will look like when it has a bunch of previous visits already captured. You will have a vitals flow sheet which gives you a timeline of the vitals, that how the patient has been faring on the configured parameters. And you have the diagnosis right over here, and the medications that the patient is currently taking are over here. Let's do a round of consultation for this patient, right? So you have your typical history and examination form, vitals form, similar to what we have in Bahmni, right? You have multiple observation forms over here as well that come pre-configured. But in case you would want, some custom forms for your clinics, you could, configure that. So let's just, capture some information for this patient. Let's say, patient complains of fever. Again, similar to what we had in, Bahmni standard, this also shows you coded answers. Now, all of these coded answers, as Gurpreet said, are now coming from a terminology dictionary. That is the CL dictionary, which is an open source dictionary, maintained by Regent Street Institute. And after we do this OPD flow, we will go back onto OpenMRS and see how that dictionary looks like and how the mappings look like, right? So let's say the patient has been having fever for the last 2 days, high grade fever, and let me say the fever has been going to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and similarly, I'll come over and put in a probable diagnosis, or I would go over to orders to make an a request for investigations. So, like similar to our Bahmni standard, you have lab orders and radiology orders. So you could order whatever X-rays you want the patient to go through, or any of the lab panels like CBC, or even the individual tests. If I would want to order a couple of them, I can do that from here. And this is the space where you could capture some free text notes, just in case the information you want to capture does not fit in within these templates. So you could use this area to scribble free text onto the patient's profile. Moving on, you enter the diagnosis. Let's say the patient has malaria, right? So the moment I start typing malaria, it gives me all of these responses, from which I can select the most appropriate one, select the certainty, and click on save. Now, all of these responses are again coming from the CL dictionary, right? And the medication screen is again very similar to Bahmni standard, where you get to order individual drugs, like let's say chloroquine for a patient with malaria, right? Let's take 1 tablet once a day for the next 5 days, or you could choose to order an order set. Now, order sets come in handy when there are pre-configured regimens, pre-approved regimens in a typical hospital. And for diseases like very common example is tuberculosis. Imagine somebody who runs a specialty clinic on certain days. You have a cardiothoracic specialist who is looking at multiple patients of the same presenting with the same problem every day. So they could utilize this feature, and all they need to do is just pre-configure the regimens, go over here, select it, and you will see that all the pre-configured drugs are already here. All you need to do is click on save, and that orders the all of those drugs in a single click, right? Now, if we go back to the patient's dashboard, this is how it looks like. This is our visit for today. All of the information that we captured for today is over here. And if I want to filter it out and see what I captured today, I could just click on the visit and go over here and look at what was captured, right? Any questions till here? I'll pause for some questions here till, before we move to the next functionality. now? All right. So moving on. Yeah, back on to the home screen. One thing I forgot to mention, Bahmni Lite is also ABDM certified, right? So you could, ABDM is the India's, national digital health backbone that Indian government has rolled out. So it may not be valid in other countries, but for India, ABDM is available, integrated already on Bahmni Lite. So next, we move on to the lab light. So let's say, let's go on to this. And I forgot to copy our patient's ID. Sorry, let me go back. The clinical and copy this ID. Okay. Now, let's say that our patient, went back and went to a lab, got their tests done. The results are available now. And, all you need to do is search for this patient. When they are back, along with their reports, they have brought a printed copy of their reports. All you need to do is search for this patient. You can see what are the pending orders. You can just select for the ones that the patient has gotten the results, and you can leave out the others. Click on upload report. If there are other orders, that the patient has also gotten results for, you could select from among these, and they will also get added. Click here, and you could, upload. So I have a sample report. I'll just open this, and yeah, it has to be below 5 MB. If if it becomes more than 5 MB, it throws an error. I'll probably upload something else. I checked for this thing. It was uploading before the demo, but somehow, sorry about that. I'll probably just use this one. Okay. And the reporting date, if the patient has gotten the test done on, let's say, 24th, and they are bringing it to you on 27th, or, they gotten it done yesterday, the report came out yesterday and they're bringing it today. So, you could select the date and click on save and upload. Now, this is how it will open up, right, for the patient. And also, if we go back to the patient's dashboard, you will be able to see the report over here, right, onto the patient's lab results display control, right? You click over here and you see the report. Yeah. So till here we have covered registration, clinical, lab entry, 3 modules. Any questions? I'm sorry, I'm not monitoring the chat, but you could speak.
There's just one question on the chat by Aditi, which is how do we charge for doctor appointments? About how do we charge the fees for doctor appointment?
Yeah, so we'll move there as well. Let's go to the payment and billing module. You come here and log in. And this is where you could charge for the doctor's appointments, right? So there is an invoices, and payments, where you would capture the payments after creating an invoice for the patient. So come here, click on new invoice. So over here, unlike Bahmni standard, this module is not like completely independent in creating invoices like we do in Odoo when you create some orders or create some prescriptions. Everything syncs back to Odoo, and you already have an invoice created or a quotation created for the patient to just pay and move forward. But over here, this is a manual step for now. You have to look for your patient, select the patient, and then select whatever service that you whatever service that the patient has availed at your clinic. And similarly, you could have create another service for a doctor's consultation. You would say doctor consultation. Okay. It should show up, but somehow it's not showing.
Yeah, just add a new option, maybe, Akhil. Once you were saying add new item, you can add a new item.
Yeah.
Just the bottom, there's that add new item.
I would say consultation charges. Dr. Gurpreet. And let's say he charges 500 per consultation. Right. And I click on save, and this is how you can add it. And it will show a total over here. Save invoice. And you could go to payments and record payment for your invoice. And you can say send payment receipt. And if you have configured an email for your an email server for your clinic, you could automatically send an email invoice or a payment receipt to the patient from here. Apart from that, there are certain reporting or dashboard that you get along with this greater application. Like you see the sales and expenses, how many were there in the previous year, for this year. And similarly, you could go to reports and say, sales for this month and update report, how many per patient, or you could say by item and update the report. You will see how many sales were done for, consultation charges, how many for the, ceftriaxone tablets. So you could, draw out your reports based on from Creator, and you could also download these PDFs. So that's how you could charge for your doctor consultations. This is a manual step for now.
Akhil, there's a question on, can the invoice from Creator be sent by SMS? I have a feeling the answer to that is no, right? We don't have SMS in Creator yet, or do we?
For now, we only have email support on Creator. We do not have SMS support. However, for appointment reminders, we do have an SMS support, which is not yet configured onto, since we do not have a commercial server. So we have not configured that. But that's SMS support is only available for the appointment scheduling. and not for Crater for now.
Thanks. Yes, I hope that answers your question.
And another important bit that we have done with Bahmni Lite is the analytics part. So you could, click over here, and that takes you to Metabase, which is an open source analytics platform. Over here, how this works is that you go to, browse data, click on Mart, and you can search for. We also have pre-configured dashboards that we will, come to later. But you could say, give me all the diabetes intake patients. You could say summarize, give me a count by diabetes type, and you see that all of the patients, there are 14 patients that have come, and all of them have type 2 diabetes. Or you can make a change and say, give me all the comorbid conditions that the patients have reported. So hypertension, and in visualization, if you click on done and say visualization, you can actually change that into, bar graphs, pie charts, and, however you want to visualize. Or you could also have, similar dashboards created that will that you can have, displayed on a screen inside a clinic, and you could monitor them every day. Any questions?
So this Metabase is actually an open source analytics tool, which you can Google or if you're not familiar with it, and it allows you to talk to any SQL database, and multiple SQL databases can be connected to. And then you can browse tables, you can create these charts, and you can either use SQL or directly use their own summarization grouping, very similar to how you do it in Google Sheets or Excel, create a visualization for a table. Metabase allows you to do that. Also, because we have shipped Bahmni Mart, which is a analytics database along with this, what that does is it flattens all the data to make it easy for reporting. So every form that you enter in Bahmni against a patient, that for every form type, like malaria intake form or others, COVID intake form, it will create one table in Mart, and every row of that table will be one instance of the form. What that means is now you can basically say, show me all the forms or all the patients for which, during malaria intake time, the platelet count was less than X, and it will generate the report. So reports become much easier with Mart because of this automatic flattening that it does. And this happens automatically. You create a new form, and automatically a form table will get created in Mart, so that you can do this kinds of analytics using Metabase. And then, of course, if you want to extend it for like a custom table that runs your custom SQL query, does an ETL, extracts it, and posts it, then that extension is easy to write on the Bahmni Mart sort of plugin. So that's also an option for teams which are a little bit more advanced and want to do advanced ETLs into Bahmni Mart. Yes, and you can run Metabase on any Docker without using AWS or Kubernetes. Your local Bahmni Docker, whichever OS you're using with Docker, it will be able to run Metabase and Mart. It's all Dockerized as one Docker Compose file. Just answering your question there.
And we still report retain the regular older reports. Okay. So you could run this as well. But going forward, I think Metabase offers a better, reporting functionality. Yeah. Apart from that, we have the appointment scheduling and the patient document upload, similar to what we have on the Bahmni standard. For document upload, you could, similarly, you could go here, select the visit, select what to upload, and it will be visible on the patient's dashboard, like we saw for the lab light. And that's pretty much that we had on the demo. Any questions? I'll stop screen sharing and I'll probably read the chat.
Okay, there is a question around Akhil around SMS. If you could just, maybe I'll share my screen and show this SMS configuration. So I don't know if you're familiar, Aditi, with the OpenMRS, but basically I've logged in into OpenMRS, which is the backend, right, for Bahmni, which is the engine on which all data is being stored in Bahmni. So Bahmni is using the OpenMRS data model to store all the data, right? This is the backend. And in this, there is an administration section that allows people with admin rights to configure some of the um, configurations for Bahmni. So if we go there into advanced settings, which is this here, you'll see a lot of these configurations. Here, SMS has these configurations around what is the, do you want to enable SMS for appointment booking? Do you want to enable SMS for registration alert? And then what is the SMS service that where you need to send this information, because you need a third party SMS service where the packet is sent with the email, the phone number and the message. So that URL is needed. So this is where some of the settings for advanced settings, I guess, in a way come in. The other settings would depend. So depending, for instance, when we were talking about the seal dictionary, all the dictionary elements can be seen here, right? So if you think for like COVID, these are all the items, or like Akhil had entered malaria, these are all the items. HIV, for instance, these are all the items. If I look at HIV positive, I can see that this data has come from the seal dictionary, and you will see that it also has mappings. Each of the terms also has mappings, let's say, to the SOMET CT code for that. What is it? ICD-10 code, what is it? So depending on the concept in use, all of this comes from here. So this is the backend where you can see the various information that has been loaded into the server, right? So this shows all the drugs that have been loaded into the system. So this all comes out of the box with Bahmni, mostly because all of this data is configured in CSV files in the initializer module, and then this whole thing gets picked up. So again, where is all this data? GitHub, Bahmni. This is all Bahmni's code-based repositories, which are all public as open source code. So clinic config is actually the configuration which Bahmni Lite comes out of the box with. Bahmni standard used to come with default config. This is the one with clinic config, right? So this is the configuration. And here in master data configuration subfolder, you will see all of this is the master data that is in files that gets read and loaded into Bahmni on the first time it starts up, right? So here, if you see in the drugs, there is the whole drugs.csv, which is the same list of drugs. So this CSV gets loaded into Bahmni on startup. If you modify this CSV, then that new drug will get added, or your drug list will get added, and that will go into Bahmni automatically. So this way, all the various entities in a way come from this, that it's already configured. Various privileges, for instance, like for send SMS, there's a privilege that needs to be present, so that would come from here. So on and so forth. The various roles which exist in the system, lab, front desk, doctor. So if you log in with the role for doctor, you will get all those rights. If you log in with front desk, then you'll only get access to front desk operations, which is registration, maybe lab report upload, and you can configure these roles, because eventually you will see all of this, like I was saying, in OpenMRS itself, right? Go back to OpenMRS. Which is the backend. So here, if you search for privileges, we have manage roles, manage privileges. So manage roles, for instance, gives us the various roles. So what are the roles that the front desk has access to? So it has access to appointments, it has access to lab, so on. Similarly, what are the doctor role? What does the doctor role have access to? So like this, you can enable, disable if you wanted a certain role, and then users get get certain access accordingly. So if I go to manage users, I say so Dr. Neha, basically the role that she has is doctor. So that's why when Dr. Neha will log in into Bahmni, all those privileges will become available accordingly. That's like the backend admin UI for Bahmni. Now, since DigitalOcean is not Kubernetes or AWS based, right? So Helm charts are mostly for Kubernetes deployment. DigitalOcean will be very similar to getting a server in a data center. So you can like choose the latest Ubuntu version and install Docker on that, and then run install Docker Bahmni directly using Docker Compose. Ubuntu comes by default with Docker already, I think, so you don't really have to install much. Just install Ubuntu and it's good to go. Also, yeah, just to know, as you had asked, are patients sync to Creator? So yeah, automatically the moment the patient is created in Bahmni, the sync behind it pushes the patient and creates a customer in Creator. This is similar to what used to happen in Bahmni with Udo and Ellis. The same thing happens with Creator for patients.
There's a
I'll
question
stop now.
if is there a patient login? No, there's no patient portal for now. We do not have that.
Yeah, there is a patient portal under development that Kiran rightly mentioned. We are starting we have actually a very rudimentary patient portal, but that portal needs enhancements to make it user friendly. So next month, as part of Port for GovTech, our team is going to start working on enhancing the patient portal for various use cases like patient can download, can book an appointment, download their prescriptions, download other details automatically. So that is a and that's in development. But yeah, currently Omni doesn't have a patient login. This is only for the facility users to use and report data. All right, we are close to the end. Any other last questions? Akhil, there's a question around barcode. Can you just like summarize possibly the question in a high level answer?
For the barcodes, yeah, you can create barcodes and have them on the patient. Um, I'll probably just share my screen and see if I can show that. Let's search for our patient, go here and print registration card. Oh, that's a problem with my browser. It does not open up. Gurpreet, would you share screen and show that? Yeah. So you could configure a barcode over here, similar to what we have in our Bahmni standard. So barcode, you can go through this documentation and configure it over here.
Great, then I think maybe we can end this call. If you have more questions, you're welcome to join our Slack channel. And there's one last question from Aditi Saha. It's saying that in Creator, how to integrate POS machine, which is a point of sale machine. I don't have an exact idea around that. Akhil, do you?
No.
Yeah, we'll have to investigate. I think some folks have tried to do that with Creator. We can also post this question on Creator's itself. Let me just paste the Creator link also so that you can post a question directly on their GitHub to find this out.
I think Shilpa was here on the, she might have dropped off, but she probably would be able to help. iPilot has done some implementations and they might have some idea about POS integration.
Right. And with regards to GST or taxes, as far as I know, you can configure taxes in Creator, right, Akhil?
Yes, you can. I'm sorry, I'm not screen sharing. I can share my screen and show. Okay. Go to settings, here go to tax types, and you can create, let's say GST at 12%. Click on save. That's how you could just create it. All right. Your 5 minutes.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And yes, please do, you can sign up for our Slack channel. Just Google for Bahmni Slack wiki.